I'm here at Greyhounds Unlimited, which is where I adopted my greyhounds from, to take photos of some of the dogs that are ready to be adopted for their adoption pages. While I'm here, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how you can take better photos of dogs to be used in your reference photos. Or you can share this video with any of your clients that might be having trouble getting photos of their dogs for you to paint. Prior to all my time going towards making tutorials, my primary source of income was teaching and doing pet portraits. One of the biggest challenges when working with a client is often getting the right angle and the right lighting for a good painting. What makes for a cute photo does not always make for a good painting. Most clients think you can work from anything, including a dog across the yard that looks like a brown dot on the photo. I'm good. I'm not that good. So here are some tips on getting good photos of dogs that will work for portrait paintings. Now, I am not a pro photographer by any stretch of the imagination, but I am able to get good enough photos of dogs that work for my paintings. My first tip is to take a lot of photos. To get about 30 good photos, I took over 600 shots. If the dog is well trained, it's easier and faster to get the shot, but if you're getting photos of somebody else's dog who doesn't respond to your commands, plan on taking a lot of photos. My next tip is to stay eye level with the dog as much as possible. This means you're probably going to be kneeling or sitting on the ground. Eye level is going to look best in 95% of cases. There are always exceptions. I've seen amazing shots taken where you're looking up or down at the dog, but generally speaking, eye level is going to be the safest bet. My next tip is to toss treats and toys a few feet in front of the dog to let them or get them to look where you want them to. If you've got someone who can help, it's easier to have that person tossing the treats and toys so that you can keep both hands on the camera. Now, I use very bad photography practices because of that. When it comes to taking photos of dogs, I usually don't have someone helping me, so I end up shooting one-handed. That is not the best way to go, but it means I have to take a lot of extra photos because a lot of mine are going to come out blurry. Luckily, my camera does have image stabilization, so that helps a lot. But the reason that I'm shooting one-handed so often is I need that other hand to toss treats in the direction I want the dog's head to turn. That really, really helps, but to get the right angle, because otherwise, if you're not tossing treats, the dog's going to want to look straight at you. And while sometimes that can make for a great shot, I like to try to get angles where it's either 3/4 or profile as much as possible. Of course, you can use a tripod to keep that camera stable. Luckily, my camera has image stabilization that works really well, so I'm able to use these horrible practices shooting one-handed. But for me, with shooting these dogs, I have to change my position so often, I find it just to be easier to shoot one-handed than to deal with trying to drag a tripod around. The lighting of the location you're shooting will make a huge difference too. When outdoors, I try to take photos in the morning or late afternoon when the sun isn't directly overhead. You get better lighting that way. I don't want the face evenly lit. I'm looking for high contrast between the light and the shadows on my subjects. Indoors, I prefer natural light coming from one direction. I'm not a huge fan of artificial lighting in most cases. Works perfectly for this. You can see I've got the lighting coming from one side of the room, and this really helps me to get that nice high contrast between the shadows and highlights on the subject. You're probably going to want to test taking photos in several different rooms to see what kind of lighting that you're able to get depending on the time of day and the windows available to you. It is far easier to get a good shot of a dog when they're sitting. Now, greyhounds don't normally sit. They're shaped like aliens, so it's uncomfortable for many of them. So I go with laying down for my guys. The goal here is to get the dog to stay in one place. When you let them stand, they tend to wander and sniff, and it's a lot harder to get that shot. Here you can see I'm using some treats. I've got a bag of treats in my hand, and I'm able to get the dogs to look where I want. That's actually a terrible shot. It doesn't really capture their expression, but I am able to get them to look where I want them to with the treats. Now, with the treats, you also want to make sure that you're letting them have a bite of that quite often. Don't just keep tempting them with it, but never give them one, or they'll stop responding. For me, here I am using kibbles. I don't normally feed my dogs kibbles, so they're using this as a treat, so I can give them a whole lot of it without making them sick like I might if I were doing a more rich cookie type treat. Yeah, that horribly obnoxious sound you just heard me make, it works. Make a fool of yourself. Get the dog completely convinced you're insane, and you can typically get better shots. By making these really annoying sounds in addition to the treats, I can get him to hold his ears up where I want. You want to be somewhat interesting to the dog as much as possible. Now, you saw the shots that work. Here's what doesn't work. See here, I'm standing and getting him to look at me, even though he's looking at me, even though the lighting is fairly similar to everything else I've taken. The angles, the photo, just, it's not appealing. It doesn't look good. I've seen in very rare cases where it works, but this is a good example of that's not, it doesn't really capture his expression at all when you're looking down. So try to be eye level with the dog as much as possible to get the best results. Another thing that you can do if the pet is used to going on the furniture, if you can put them up on the couch or the chair somewhere where you've elevated them, it is a lot easier to get more eye level with them. Or if the pet is lazy like these two here and they want to lay with their head down all the way because, you know, holding it up takes energy that they just don't have, then it's easier to get down low to where you can have the head resting on the couch or resting on a bed and still get a really good photo that would work well for a portrait. Please share with us, what tips do you have for getting good photos of pets? What little tricks have you done? One of my best has actually been throwing a flip-flop across the room. I don't know why that works, but it's one of the few things I can get Gibson to lift his head for. It's not even on camera. Gibson, up here. Nothing? No? He just wants me to leave him alone. Have you subscribed yet? If not, I have a handy button right there. It's round, has an orange arrow going towards it. If you click on that, that'll help you to keep up to date with all of my new art videos every single week.